Hi, I'm Keith Glickstein. I work for RJ Hampshire and the number 36 Geico Honda Factory Connection Racing. RJ runs the Pro Taper Fusion handlebar. It has a crossbar and the SX Race model bend. The controls are arc levers, standard basic setup for most riders. Nothing special with RJ, he's kind of neutral. The handlebar position pretty much right dead center in the middle. We run a Works clamp and by Honda. And his grips, he likes the donuts from Pro Taper. A little bit help with the blisters on the thumb and just a softer feel against the bike. We would like to run a safety wire with the steering stem net, keep that from coming loose. RJ kind of runs, for me, I would say a little bit on the looser side. Nothing that's going to get too floppy, but probably a little bit looser than most. The grips, half waffle Pro Taper grip. We run a Works throttle tube, aluminum finish, and that as far as the front of the bike, we got tires are Dunlop tires, DID rims. The front brake is powered by a Nissan Works caliper, and then a 270 Moto Stuff rotor. RJ likes a little bit softer brake setup, so we run a softer lever from ARC, and the pads are chamfered. It's a Works master cylinder with the ARC soft pitch lever. Brake lines are just stock. We run Cycra plastics, front disc guard. We're running factory hubs with a DID LTX dirt style rim. We run a carbon fiber tank guard and also Renegade fuels. So for this weekend and usually most outdoors, we'll run the mesh in front of the radiator shroud. That just prevents dirt from getting in between the radiator fins and keeping the bike cool. We run a high pressure cap, a 1.8. RJ runs a 165 on the whole shot device, a little bit lower position, and then we have a few different fork guards that are depending on track conditions. If it's tacky or real slick, we'll adjust the height. We're just running a stock skid plate. It helps with the keeping anything out of the engine safe basically. And in-house engines, all factory connection. So with the mapping and programming all done by Kibbe on the Vortex ignitions, Athena gaskets for the engine, and then we have a Hinson clutch system. They do offer a few different parts to help with engagement. There's no one on the team that's a little bit different. He's right there in the middle with what's normal. And then Yoshimura powered exhaust with twin air intake. On the Yoshimura exhaust, they do offer O2 bung that helps, if we're running data, they can plug in and go through practice and just get some feedback. Engine hangers are just a stock production with a small modification with the hole drilled. Foot pegs are Works Honda foot pegs, and the same as the brake pedal, and then the stock rear brake system just with a Yoshimura brake clevis. Works foot peg mount as well, standard height. We run a carbon starter relay bracket, repositions it better in our eyes for durability and lighter. Titanium all around the bike. RJ does like a stock front axle, helps with a little bit more comfort. Yoshimura dual exhaust system, and then as far as the driven with a Dunlop MX33S tire, Pro Taper sprocket with a DID chain. Axle blocks are just stock with an anno coating and titanium rear axle. Showa rear shock, it's a factory connection Delta linkage setup. RJ is running Showa racing components for suspension. Each rider had an option to choose. RJ liked the Showa setup a little bit better. Spring fork, factory connection does offer a retail service where anybody can go in and get their bike fine-tuned for their rider ability, weight. We have a stock rear brake caliper, and it's a Moto Stuff rear rotor that's turned down. We run stock chain blocks with a coating. Wheel position is basically based on gearing option. There's not too much you can do between, unless he's requesting a wheel forward, you kind of have to play with gearing. So that all depends on the rider's preference and what he wants out of his engine, and that changes week to week. Stock swing arm pivot bolt. Pretty much the only two stock bolts on the bike would be the axle and swing arm pivot. Gripper seat cover by Decor. They offer a 6 rib on the seat cover. It's a work shifter that's from Honda. The cases are stock, but they're sent out and get coating done on them for, you know, looks and durability. Stock hoses, maybe for outdoors we'll switch. The stock harness is revisioned and is actually made a lot stronger, and we actually reposition things a little bit better and just look out for sharp edges. So we do run booties over certain areas and keep the thing protected and not rubbing against anything. Twin air filter in the airbox. This weekend with the sand conditions, we'll probably run the Twin Air's screen cover, and that helps with, you know, just sand. And depending if we're going mud racing, you know, we might switch to one of their thicker filters or their other option filter cover. As far as his rear brake, he runs the brake pedal a little bit lower. I would say that he's a little bit aggressive on the rear brake, so running it lower could, you know, keep him off of it. RJ likes a pretty tight setup with his controls. His throttle setup is on the edge of having absolutely no free play. RJ runs a little bit softer brake setup from the rest of the riders on the team, and that's done with a softer front brake lever and a chamfered pad setup. All the engines are pretty close to the same. The only difference would be their, depending on their clutch setup, if a rider likes a hard hit or softer hit. RJ's is softer hit. You know, gearing is the kind of the only fine-tune option aside from Kibbe's mapping changes. Yeah, there is a secondary start map for depending on gate conditions, track conditions, you know, how he's coming off that day, we can adjust with that button. Kibbe's in charge of all the mapping. With that, you know, depending on this, as the day goes and the weather changes, he'll go in and fine tune the bike using that O2 sensor. He can, you know, plug in and see what's going on there and make adjustments as necessary. We use a Cycra plastic body kit. The radiators, they have the side louver that allows a little bit more air to go through, and then the same on the front fender. Also, they get the stadium number plate. Run aluminum hardware on the areas that do not require, you know, much abuse, which would be the brake line guides, front number plate. So we run a foam for the number plates, and that actually helps with sound. The AMSOIL products keep our bike running cool, and the engine, keeping it fresh with AMSOIL 10W50 full synthetic racing oil. So this year Honda obviously came out with the new 2018 model, you know, with Yoshimura helping with the power and factory connection suspension. We've got a, you know, bike that's pretty well proven.